Welcome to the Life After Plus One podcast, where we turn life's lemons into delightful lemonade. Get ready for inspiring stories, uplifting conversations, and all the tips and tricks to rock your single parent journey with style. I'm your host, Leanne, and it's time to embrace the adventure of Life After Plus One. So, let's dive in. Hello. Welcome back to Life After Plus One. I'm Leanne, your podcast host and your single parent mentor and coach. And today I want to talk about the topic of when your ex turns nasty, because it's one of the things that no one prepares us for. You don't expect it. 1 minute you're best friends, it's the love of your life, everything's going perfect. The next minute you break up and they're your worst enemy. What the hell has happened? So I want to talk about that today because it's something that no one talks about. No one talks about it. No one prepares you for it. You're like, what the hell? Where did this just come from? I was not expecting this. So let's talk about that. Now, when we're looking at that, when we're looking at when our ex turns nasty, there's a few things you need to take into consideration here. First of all, are they nasty because of things that they are doing and saying? Or are they nasty because they're now your ex? They're now your ex, so you now see them as the person that's ruined your life, so you're giving them the villain title. You're making them to be the nasty person. And one thing that a lot of people forget in this situation is that when you're feeling shit and angry and hurt and upset and lonely and everything else that comes from feeling, or the feelings that you get when you're going through a breakup, your ex is also going through this too. And it's so easy to forget that you're just in your little bubble of what you're going through. Now, in saying that, I don't expect you to, wrap them up in cotton wool and ask them if they're okay, because you're going through the same shit. That's not what I'm implying here. But quite often when we're going through a breakup, it's easy just to think of what you're going through, and it's easy just to focus on how hurt you are and how upset you are. And you're also forgetting that they are also feeling the same things too. So when you're going through this, is it that they're nasty and all of a sudden the worst person in the world because of something that they're doing? Or are they all of a sudden the worst person in the world because they've put you in this situation of being a single parent? They've put you in this situation where you're no longer in the family home. They've put you in this situation where you're no longer getting to see your kids every single day because you've now got to share custody with them. And that's not something you ever plan for. Nobody plans on being a single parent. And it totally throws your world upside down. So is it that they are the worst person in the world? Is it that they have turned against you? Or is it that you've turned against them because of what they have done to you? Now, I get it. Going through a breakup can really bring out the worst in someone. You are going through so much. You're losing your husband, you're losing your wife, you're losing, your de facto partner, you're losing seeing your kids all the time, you're possibly losing your home, you're possibly having to go get a job, maybe being a stay-at-home parent. You may already work full-time and have to get a second job to make ends meet. Your whole world is flipped upside down and you pretty much have to start your life from scratch again. And you're going through all these emotions, and at the end of it, it's happening because of your breakup. Your world is now having to start again because that relationship just ended. So now you're in a situation where this person who you once loved and once had your whole life revolved around them has now flipped up your world upside down. So this is going to be where all your anger is directed. So is it that they're doing something wrong to you, or is it that you're holding on to all this anger and hurt and frustration because of the situation you're now in because your relationship has ended? And of course, that anger and frustration is going to be directed towards them. Now, it is hard. Going through a breakup is hard. And as I've mentioned in a previous episode, you're dealing with so many emotions. 1 minute you're happy that you're not with this person. The next minute you're lost, you're confused, you're overwhelmed, you're scared, you're lonely. there is so much going on. You've never been through this before, and you're going through it as a parent where you're in a position where you're no longer going to see your kids all the time. There's a lot to take on. There's a lot of emotions. There's a lot of feelings. It's scary. And it's scary knowing or not knowing what your life is going to look like next week, next month, next year. It's a scary thing. So, as I just said, all these emotions that you've got whirling up around you or inside you are going to be directed to your ex. And that's where I was getting at when I was saying that, is this nasty ex of yours that's all of a sudden this worst person in the world, are they this nasty ex because of something that they've done or because of the feelings that you're holding on to and because of what you've been through? So it's obviously all their fault. Now, I do understand that when you go through this, you do get exes that can get quite nasty. They do say things about you, they do call you names, and they will tell their side of the story to their friends and family. They're going to tell the story from their side. Just as when you tell your friends and family about your breakup, you're going to tell your side of the story. Now, I'm not saying anyone's lying here, but when you tell people about what's happened, you're going to tell it from your perspective. And you may all of a sudden start hearing stories about what they're saying and what they're saying about the breakup. And you may not agree, and that's going to get you angry. Well, why'd they say this about me? Why'd they say that? Why didn't they say this? The best thing you can do when you're going through something like this is to take it as water off a duck's back. Is that the right saying? I think it is. Don't take it personally. And it's hard. It is the hardest thing ever to not take it personally, because your ego is hurt, you're sad, you're upset, you're pissed off, and you've got to direct that anger somewhere. And when you're hearing them say things about you when you're already feeling this way, of course you're going to want to give it back to them. Of course you're going to want to direct this anger back on them. But the thing to remember is, when it constantly turns into this tennis match, it's back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, with one person saying one thing and then the other person just trying to one up the next person, and the other person like, well, I'll show you. And then it's one up again. And that's how you end up with these constant back and forth court battles and these constant back and forth fighting and these constant battles with custody and everything else, because nobody's willing to give in. You're constantly just butting heads, trying to prove a point to the other person because you're so pissed off at each other. But you've got to get to a place where you learn to accept that was your breakup. That's done. This person is not in your life now because they just want to rub it into your face that you were once married and now you're not, or you were once in a de facto relationship and now you're not. They're in your life for your kids, and that's it. And as someone that's been there, I went through an extremely toxic breakup, extremely toxic. But it stopped very quickly as soon as I disengaged from it all. When you learn to not attach yourself to anything that they're saying or doing, your life becomes so much easier, so much easier. Now, I do get it when you're going through a breakup and you've got all these emotions, and a lot of this anger and a lot of it comes from you just wanting to protect yourself, you wanting to protect your kids. And in that moment, you're doing the best you can to look after you and your kids. And it's scary. It's scary giving up full-time care of your kids when you've seen them every single day of their life to all of a sudden have to co-parent. And I remember, as someone that's been there, the very first night my daughter slept at her dad's, I can tell you now, I was a bucket case. I cried like a baby. It's hard. I'm not going to deny it. You've been with these kids or this kid, however many you have, every single day of their life. And all of a sudden, it's like you're giving them away, which you're not. It's the other parent. Having to send them to this other parent's house when you're not there. It's a very hard pill to swallow, and it's a very hard process to adjust to. But 10 plus years on, I'm at a place now When my daughter says to me, Mum, I don't feel like going to Dad's, I'm like, yes, you are. Mum needs a break. And you see that a lot. People fight for as much care of their kids as possible. Then I look at it and I think to myself, oh, you're going to regret that in a few years' time. You're going to regret that. And at the end of the day, I'm not here to tell people what to do with their custody plan. I'm not here to tell people how much care they should or shouldn't have with their kids. But I am here to advise you that getting in that constant back and forth battle with your ex just to prove a point or just because you're pissed off with them is not going to help anyone. It's not going to benefit you, it's not going to benefit them, and it's not going to benefit the kids. The more you fight with your ex because you're hurt and because you're upset and because you're scared and lonely and whatever else, the more it's going to hinder your growth, the more it's going to affect your mental state. And I can guarantee you, if you've broken up with your ex for some time and you're still fighting with them, you're still going through court battles, you're still going through custody battles, you're still fighting over care time and they're not getting dropped off on time and whatever else. And if you start dating someone and you're going through this with your ex, they're not going to want to hang around. I can tell you now, if I met someone and they're going through all this drama with their ex and court battles and constant fighting and it was not an easy process, I'll be like, I'm out. I don't need that. And the reason for that is you've got to get to a place where you can just be the bigger person. And you might think to yourself, well, fuck Leanne, why can't they be the bigger person? Because that's why you're here listening to this podcast, because you're here to have a better future. You're here to have a better life. You're here to have a more positive outcome and a more fulfilling life. And you're not going to get that if you keep playing tit for tat. You're not going to get that if you keep feeding into their negative energy and their negative drama. You're not going to get that if you're just wanting to keep one-upping them and proving a point. You need to get to a place where they're not just the evil ex, even though there are some people out there that are very spiteful and they do things to intentionally piss you off and intentionally fuck you over and do things to try and see you suffer. If it doesn't affect you or your kids in any way, then just take it with a grain of salt. Because at the end of the day, most of the time when these people are doing this, it's because their egos are hurt. They're upset. They're pissed off. They're angry and they don't know how to deal with their emotions. And unfortunately, they're taking it out on you. Is that right? No. But if you keep biting back with them, if you keep wanting to prove a point to them, if you keep wanting to have that attitude of, I'll show them, you are not going to get a positive outcome. You are constantly just going to keep butting heads. If you don't get to a place where you can say, okay, you know what? Enough's enough. I've just got to wave the white flag and say, we cannot go on like this. Because you can't. You can't. It is not healthy for the kids to see mum and dad constantly fighting. It's not healthy for the kids to see mum and dad constantly in court or constantly fighting over little trivial things. Is it worth it? Do you really care if the kids got dropped off 15 minutes late? Is it a big deal if one of the kids forgot their jumper or their water bottle at the other parent's house? It's not the end of the world. They've probably got plenty of other jumpers and they've probably got plenty of other water bottles. We know kids have endless bloody stash of these things at the other parent's house. Is it the end of the world? Sometimes you've just got to learn to pick your battles. And that's what I'm getting at here with this episode. Are they all of a sudden the nastiest person in the world because of things that they're doing? Or are they the nastiest person in the world because of the way that you're looking at them, because of the situation that they've put you in, because you're now their ex and you're now a single parent and you've now got to find somewhere else to live and you're now got to get a new job or whatever your situation is? Is it that they're the nastiest person in the world because of your situation? Now, I do understand that when you're going through a breakup and emotions are running high and you're going through every negative emotion you can think of, it is normal to get into protective mode, to fight for you, to fight for your kids, to fight what you think in that moment is best for you. Now, what you think you're fighting for might be the best thing, but in reality, is it really? Are you fighting for it because you just want it, because you would just want to prove a point to your ex? Are you fighting for it because you're scared? Are you fighting for it because you just don't know what else to do and you don't know how else to handle this situation? So just like when parents, they fight for their custody and they fight and they hate the other parent. Like, no, you can't have the kids on this day. You can't have them then. You can't have them for this long. And they're fighting for it as much as possible, as hard as it is in that moment. Sometimes the best thing you can do is just take a step back instead of just retaliating, instead of just fighting back, instead of saying, how dare you do this, instead of just wanting to constantly one-up them. Take a deep breath and step back and just realize that, you know what? They're going through the same shit that you are. They're going through the same feelings. They're going through the same emotions. They're going through it too. And it's going to keep being that tennis match if you just keep going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But what I'm saying when I say take a step back and understand things from their perspective, a lot of times when you're going through a breakup, well, actually I won't say a lot of times, majority of the time when you're going through a breakup and people are making these rash decisions, well, not people, you and your ex, you're making these decisions out of anger. You're making these decisions out of frustration. And you're not doing it with the best intentions. You're doing it because you're hurt. You're doing it because you're scared. Just like when it comes to custody, people are scared to give up care of their kids, which is understandable. I get that. It is a scary thing to do. Like I said, I cried on the first night when it happened to me. It's a scary thing. I understand. But fighting with your ex about it because you're scared to do something is not going to help. You are both in the same boat and you don't want to see that. You don't care in that moment what they're going through because in your eyes, they've put you through this. They've put you in this situation. So worrying about their world and how they're feeling is the last of your priorities at the moment. And I get that. I understand. You're not going to be feeling shit and feeling this way and going, oh, I wonder if they're okay today. I wonder how they feel. I wonder if they're sad today. No, that's probably going to be the last thing you even think about. You're just like, screw them, F them. I don't give a shit. Look what they've done to me. I don't give a fuck. They are going to get it and I don't care what. I'm going to see them suffer. And that's a common trend when people are breaking up. They just want to see their ex suffer. Why? Because it's that attitude that turns that person that was your best friend into your worst enemy. Why do you want to see the other parent of your kids suffer? Why? Because they broke your heart? Because your relationship ended? Your relationship, your marriage, whatever it was, is not the same as your role as being a parent. And that is the hardest thing about breaking up as a parent. You have kids involved. It's not like someone where you can just go your own separate ways and just block them. You have to keep this person in your life. So the harder you make your life, the harder you keep wanting to fight with them, the more you keep wanting to prove a point, the more you keep trying to battle with them, the harder it's going to make your life because they're not just going to magically disappear overnight unless they're one of those deadbeat parents that doesn't give a shit and they just do disappear. There are a few of them out there and it's not just dads. I'm not just gender bashing a specific race or gender here. It happens with women and it happens with men. They just all of a sudden disappear and they don't want to be involved in the kid's life, which is sad. I don't get that. I don't understand that. But for those parents that do want to be involved, don't fight it. Don't fight it. If you have another parent, your ex is wanting to be involved in your kids' lives, don't push it away. Because that is the best thing you can have for your kids. Again, I'm not here to tell you how to parent. I'm not here to tell you what to do with your parenting arrangement. I'm here to explain why this person who was once the love of your life is now your worst enemy. And yes, it comes down to the way they behave, but it also comes down to the way you now perceive them because of the situation that you're in. So, what can you do differently? How can you manage this or get through this in a way that's not so toxic, in a way that doesn't cause so much drama? And that is by learning to not let it trigger you. They will say names. They will tell their side of the story. They will tell their friends what they want to say about you. You need to learn to not care. Don't worry about it. And I can guarantee you now, the more you learn to disengage, the more you learn to emotionally detach yourself, the easier your life becomes. It is so easy to co-parent when there is no fighting. It is so easy to co-parent when there is no worries or stress about what the other person thinks or what they say or what they're doing. You just don't care. You stay in your lane. And if the kids come back home a little bit later, then so be it. Sometimes you need to pick your battles. And when you're going through this breakup and you're feeling this way and you've got these emotions and you're feeling hurt, it's easy to nitpick about everything, anything and everything that you don't like. But this person is never going to parent the same way as you. Our own parents, our own best friends, our own next door neighbors, our own brothers and sisters are never going to parent the same way as we do. So your ex is never going to parent the same way as you do. So if they do something different, you've got to learn to accept it, unless it's affecting the kids in some way, of course. But if it's just something that's different to you do, pick your battles. Because the more you nitpick and the more you interfere with their parenting style, the more they're going to want to come back and attack you. The more they're going to get defensive and then put their guard up and go like, well, why are they so against me? Why are they attacking everything I do? Why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? It's just going to be a constant battle. Learn to let it go. Just drop some of those emotions. Drop the attachment you have of what happened. And learn to accept, okay, this is where I'm at. I don't like it. I don't agree with it. I'm pissed off. But I'm not going to make any positive progress in my life if I'm constantly worrying about what my ex is doing. If I'm constantly worrying about what they're saying about me. If I'm constantly worrying about what they think about me. If I'm constantly worrying about the little things they do when the kids are at their house. It's not going to benefit you in any way. So this person that was once the love of your life, are they now the worst enemy in the world to you because of the way you're now looking at them? Are they now your worst enemy because of the way you're now treating them? And I don't necessarily mean that you're being nasty or horrible to them. Maybe you are, but maybe it's just you don't know how to handle these emotions. You don't know how to handle it now that you're so lost and hurt and scared, and now you've got to manage to co-parent. Now you've got to manage to do things on your own. Now you've got to manage to change your life around. And in some people's eyes, giving the kids to the other parent is like giving into them. No, I'm not going to give the kids to them because it's like they did this to me, so why should I? Because it's not the same. Don't mix the two up. What they did to you or what happened between your breakup should not be a reason for you to go, well, no, they pissed me off, so I'm not letting them see the kids. They did this, so I'm not letting them have that. Now, they may be doing that to you. Is that right? No. But if you're going to keep constantly fighting with them, you're going to constantly keep one-upping them and proving a point to them, then they're going to keep doing it back. It's never going to end. Wave that white flag and say, I surrender. I give the fuck up. I am not playing this game anymore. And to do that, you don't even need to say anything to them. You don't need to say, okay, I'm not doing this. You just mentally and emotionally withdraw yourself. Don't engage. Don't worry about their comments. Don't worry about what they're doing. And don't get involved in any toxic drama. So the best thing you can do when you're feeling like your ex has turned into your worst enemy is take a step back and just learn to get over the breakup. Because that's the hardest part. You're grieving the loss of someone. You're grieving the loss of your marriage, of your family life, and of everything that came with it. And on top of that, you've got to do all this other stuff and manage to live life on your own. It's a fucking lot. No one prepares you for that. And most of the time, people don't even have close family or friends around them to help them out. They're just winging it on their own. It's not easy. So that's why so many people take all these emotions out on their ex. There's so much emotions and hurt and anger and resentment and sadness that's just being thrown around from both of you. You're both feeling this. You may be thinking, well, fuck, no, they're not upset. They've already got another partner. They're not upset. They're saying this about me. They're fine. I guarantee you now, deep down, they are upset. And maybe they do have a new partner, but maybe that's their way of trying to forget everything. Maybe that's their way of trying to move on. But deep down, they are pissed off. Deep down, they are sad. Deep down, they are upset. I guarantee you. So if you're wanting to not have to deal with such a nasty ex, and you're not wanting to deal with the drama, and you're not wanting to deal with the fighting, then ask yourself, what part of that do you play? Are you doing anything to provoke any of this? Are you doing it back to them? Are you encouraging it? Are you name calling? Are you depriving them of certain things? I'm not saying it is just you. What I am saying is if it is happening from both parties, then you're both involved and you're both playing a part. There needs to come a time where you just step back and not get involved. Focus on what is best for you and your future. Focus on what is best for you and your kids. Because the constant fighting, the constant court battles, the constant one-upping, the constant everything else is not what's best for you and your kids. They see all this. They don't want to be involved in this shit. They don't want to be involved in this drama because it's awkward for them. It makes things uncomfortable for them. That's when you get kids going through these phases of not wanting to go to the other parents because they get protective of one parent. And one parent might say, oh no, I don't like the other parent. I don't like mom, or I don't like dad. And it puts some uneasiness on the kids. It makes the kids think, well, I don't want to upset mom, or I don't want to upset dad, so maybe I shouldn't go. Don't involve the kids in this. This is your drama. Keep it separate. And the best thing you can do is not just keep it separate, is to completely disengage from it. Step away from it. You don't need that drama. So if you want your worst enemy to stop being your worst enemy and just be your kid's parent, then don't make them be your worst enemy. Don't get involved in what they do. Don't get involved in what they say. And I promise you now that if you step back and you don't involve yourself in anything at all, they will do the same. They will do the same. My co-parenting relationship is now so easy because there is nothing. There is now no name calling. There's now no toxic drama. There's nothing. It's just easy with my daughter, back and forth. And that's where you need to come to. And for those of you who knew my breakup at the start and knew how toxic it was, it's done a complete 180 because I don't get involved. And it's a big eye-opener to see how much that does change when just one person steps back. Because when that one person is fighting, when that one person is saying something, even though it's the other person, even though it's not you doing anything wrong, and they might be saying it to you, if you feel the need to constantly defend yourself, if you feel the need to constantly prove a point and protect yourself and have to bite back to what they're saying and doing, it's going to be that constant back and forth battle. You've got to get to a point and just not let it faze you and go, oh, okay. Because eventually it will stop. Because if you're not engaging anymore, they'll be like, oh, this is boring. They will eventually stop if you stop. And your co-parenting arrangement will be 1,000 times easier. And the best thing that can happen when you're going through this is where one person goes to the other person and says, hey, this is not healthy. This is not good for you. It's not good for me. And it's not good for the kids. We need to find a better way to co-parent. That is the best thing you could do. But a lot of people aren't in a place where they're ready to talk to their ex in that way because they feel like they're giving in. They feel like they're just giving their ex what they want, when it's not, because you're giving you what you want, which is a happier life, which is removing all that stress, all that drama, all that fighting. But if you don't want to say it to them, don't. Just mentally and emotionally do it. Just step back. Don't engage. But having that conversation with them, just saying, hey, we can't go on like this. This is not healthy. So I get where it all comes from. You know, it's all those emotions of feeling hurt, Your ex has let you down. Your ex has upset you. Your ex has made you be a single parent. Your ex is making you start your life again. Your ex is maybe talking about you. They've said this, they've said that. And you're like, hell no, you can't put me in this situation and say this about me. I'll show them. I'll make them suffer. I'll give this to them. No way, they're going to win. There is nothing to gain from that attitude. So if you don't want your ex to keep being your worst nightmare, then change the way you look at the situation. Change the way you react to the situation. And as I said earlier, you may be thinking, well, why can't they? Well, maybe they're listening to this episode as well, and maybe they will. But if they're not in a place to just do the right thing, then you be the better person. It's not going to stop until one person says, right, I deserve better. I'm not being treated like this. I'm not putting up with this. And set your boundaries. And by setting your boundaries is by showing them that you are not going to play their game. And by not playing their game is by not responding and not reacting. And they will quickly a co-parent that you may have a bit of respect for instead of your worst enemy. Because this person is going to be in your life for a very, very long time. And it's not just till when they turn 18 and then you can not have to worry about them anymore because there's no more child support or anything else. But when they get married, when they're older, and when they have kids and you become grandparents together, they are always going to be in your life. So the easier it is, the more you learn to let these things slide, the more you learn to bite your tongue, the more you learn to just engage in what's necessary, the easier your life becomes. Don't let this person constantly live through the rest of your life as your worst enemy because you're still hurt from the breakup. Don't let this person be your worst enemy forever because you're not willing to move on from what happened in the past. The best advice I can always give, if you want to move on with your future, you need to learn to let go of your past and move on from that. So that's my little pep talk today on why your ex can quickly turn into your worst enemy. Now, there is more to it than that. There's other things. People do get nasty. People do get violent. People do get aggressive, and you may be dealing with addictions and everything else. That's a whole other kettle of fish. But really, when it comes down to it, the more you learn to just stay in your lane, the more you learn to focus on you, the more you learn to focus on just your kids, and the more you learn to take your attention off them, the easier your life becomes. Don't put your attention on them. Don't focus on what they're doing. Don't worry about their parenting style unless it affects your kids. Don't worry about what they're doing. Take your attention off them. You're giving them too much energy. Put your focus on you and your kids, and that's it. And your life will become 1,000 times easier. If you follow these steps and if you learn to not treat them as your worst enemy, it becomes so much easier. Don't be fighting with them at Christmas time. Don't be fighting over this and that and where you're going to see them and who's doing this. Try and just be the bigger person and just do what's best for the kids. Wave that white flag and say, not fighting. Not fighting. Let's do this better. Let's be better for our kids. And one thing I always say to my daughter when a little problem arises, when something comes up in her life, and this is very different to dealing with your worst enemy, but it's something that I always say to her, when a problem arises, there is always a resolution. There is always a way to fix a problem. There's always a way around it. And this applies with your ex and your worst enemy. There is always a way to resolve things. And fighting back with them, proving a point, one-upping them is not the way to fix things. It's just going to escalate it, and you don't want to do that. So that's it from me, guys. I really hope you got something from this. And if you do want to chat more, and if you are really struggling to get through this, then jump on my website or on the show notes below. I do have all the details. I have a free chat available if you want to see if we are aligned and if it's something that I can help you with. Let's talk. Let's have a chat. There's so many options that I have available. If anything you're going through, whether it's co-parenting, dating, any kind of emotional stress, anything at all that you're going through as a single parent, I'm here to help you through that. So let's have a chat if you're interested. And please share it with any of your single parent friends, and feel free to give us a review or a star rating, because those are the things that help me and help the show get heard and into more ears. So thanks again, everyone. And as I always say, thank you for coming back week after week. And until next week, I'll be in your ears then. Thank you for joining us on the Life After Plus One podcast. If you loved what you heard today and looking for some further support, then jump onto our website, lifeafterplusone.com. Plus, don't forget to check out our Instagram page for further resources and inspo. You can find all the links in the show notes. And remember, you're not alone on this path. I'm looking forward to seeing you on the next episode. And in the meantime, keep thriving, keep growing, and keep exploring your amazing life after plus one.